Stick to your lane. Don't get caught up with the Joneses, just trying to keep up with what everyone else is doing. You don't need the fancy car. You don't need the fancy watch. You do not want to buy liabilities, you want to buy assets, right? The financial decisions you make today are going to mean something in 10, 15 years' time that's going to be super powerful. So if you can just follow that simple principle and try and delay that as long as possible, don't buy liabilities, live below your means and buy assets. The sooner you do that, the more powerful it's going to be to your future. So go out there, purchase those assets, not those liabilities. And that's a great opportunity to utilize that to get into the marketplace in property, shares, whatever it is, right? Go out there, be consistent, delay your gratification, have that financial discipline, because in the long run, for not only yourself, but your family. We are live with another episode of the Tailored Property Wealth Podcast. My name is Casey Taylor. I'm the host of the podcast. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about delaying your gratification to get out of the rat race. And it's going to be a pretty valuable one, good insight into just the importance of, I guess, making those short-term sacrifices, which is going to benefit you in 10, 15, 20 years' time. And I think for the average person, it can be pretty hard to delay that gratification. And we'll touch on a couple of different little bits and pieces. The most important part to remember when you're out there, you're investing or you're trying to improve your future situation within anything, the most powerful thing is getting in and doing it as soon as possible, because that compound effect over time is going to be far more powerful than waiting another 5 years and then starting to pull your finger out and do things. I've managed to build a multi-million-dollar property portfolio in just a few short years, and I want to inspire and motivate other Australians that if I can do it, so can you. The Tailored Property Wealth Podcast has been created to help educate, mentor, coach, and support you through everything relating to property investing to make sure you go out there and make a much better educated decision when investing in property. Please like, share, subscribe, and share this podcast with anyone who you think might see value in it. On the flip side of that, though, if you're, let's say, 50 and you think it's too late, it's not too late to go out there and do something about improving your financial situation, improving your future. If you're going to plan to retire at 65 and you're now 50, you still have 15 years worth of opportunity. Be aggressive. Obviously make calculated risk, but you still have a good period of time and good window where you can go out there and improve your future. Okay. So the first thing and the most important thing, and this is like a keeping up with the Joneses thing, right? And this is something I do not get caught up in whatsoever. I don't care what other people are doing, what other people are buying. I stick to my guns, stay in my lane, and I make those choices that are going to improve my future. I don't need to go out and buy the flashy car, the flashy watch, what else? I don't know. Whatever it is that's flashy out there. Don't try and keep up with the Joneses just to look like you're doing well. It's the same as socials, right? You look on social media and it's a really short period of time that's a highlight of someone's life. That doesn't mean that their whole life is like that, and it also doesn't mean just because they got the Mercedes or whatever it is, right? It doesn't mean that they're financially better off. They've probably got a massive debt that is stressing them out to make that payment each week. So I think it's just really important to stick to your lane. Don't get caught up with the Joneses, just trying to keep up with what everyone else is doing, because a lot of those people probably don't have the cash position that you believe that they do. So I think that's just super, super important. And that touches on the first thing with delayed gratification is you do not want to buy liabilities. You want to buy assets, right? And what is a liability truly is something that's costing you money. So that can be a brand new car, a boat, jet ski, caravan, whatever it is, where you're going out and potentially getting personal debt on that, or you're leveraging against your owner-occupied property. That is a liability, right? That is purchasing a depreciating asset. So over time, the value of that is going to decrease. Obviously, a couple of variables there where it might not be the case, but for the most part, those things over time are going to depreciate in value. And I find it quite fascinating. I speak to people that have savings and they will admit that they've been blowing it on this, that, and the other. But then when it's time for them to go out and take action and purchase a property, they're too scared to pull the trigger. And I just find that so fascinating that you go out there and you're happy to buy something that's going to cost you money and depreciate in value. But on the flip side, where you have to purchase something that's going to improve your future, create financial freedom in the future, they're scared to do it and don't want to take that action. All right. Now, on the flip side, buying an asset, what is an asset? It's something that is generating income for you and over time as well as going to appreciate in value. So if you can just follow that simple principle and try and delay that as long as possible, don't buy liabilities, live below your means and buy assets. The sooner you do that, the more powerful it's going to be to your future. And it sounds simple, but it can be pretty hard to do because within society, we're conditioned to go to school, follow a certain curriculum, learn how to be an employee. We go out and then typically what we'll do is we'll get a personal loan for a car. We'll pay that off in 5 to 7 years. We get used to that and then we go out and we purchase an owner-occupied property and we pay that off over the next 20, 30 years, right? And that's what keeps us working as full-time people and stimulating the economy and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So keep to that simple principle. Delay buying the brand new car or just buy something that isn't the super flashy car, just something pretty standard out there. It doesn't need to be shiny or anything like that where it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. And then go out there and purchase assets. When I was a bit younger, was an extremely good saver, nearly bought a property, didn't happen, went on a little bit of a party spree, went overseas. Then I purchased a car with straight out in cash, used majority of my savings up, and I was back to square one. And that was probably one of the biggest mistakes I made financially. I think on the flip side now is a really good, important lesson because I, for so long, was so good with my money, and it was good to kind of be in a position where I was in a bad financial situation and I hated it. And it kind of just instilled moving forward. I switched back on, got straight back into it, worked multiple jobs to get back to a position where I wanted to be in. So it just instilled never wanting to be in that position again. So I think that was something and one of the biggest lessons that I learned. You really got to understand as well, and this just comes back to the delayed gratification in general, right? The financial decisions you make today are going to mean something in 10, 15 years' time that's going to be super powerful. It's the same as anything, right? I'm terrible at the moment with my diet, and having a diet, sticking to that today, the effects of that I don't believe really take place in your body until 2 or 3 weeks. So it's hard to kind of really understand that within your mindset. But if you can understand that in 10, 15 years' time, those decisions and that compounding effect are just going to mean a massive, massive difference. So go out there, purchase those assets, not those liabilities. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tailored Property Wealth Podcast. I hope you're learning lots and getting lots of value out of this episode. If you want to discuss the opportunity of working with us here at Tailored Property Wealth, jump across to the website www.tailoredpropertywealth.com.au, complete the contact form, let us know that you're listening to the Tailored Property Wealth Podcast, and let's reach out, let's have a chat and see how we can help you execute on your property goals. When we're in our career and over time, progressively, naturally, what does happen is we increase our income, right? From when we're 20 right through till we get into our early 30s. That's where kind of your peak income versus expenses might be, is right before you have kids, but your career's developed. And that's a great opportunity to utilize that to get into the marketplace in property, shares, whatever it is, right? And I speak to a lot of people who are about to, like, kids is on their horizon, and then they decide not to take action and say, we'll wait until we have kids. But what's going to happen in 2 to 4 years is their income's probably not going to be as high as it was today, because potentially mum's gone on mat leave for a period of time and she might not go back to a full-time capacity, but you now got a dependent. Your expenses are higher. When the banks look at you, you need to claim a dependent. So naturally your borrowing capacity is lower. So that's why it's kind of that peak period, potentially, and this is just a generalization, it's not always the case, but late 20s, early 30s, you're at your peak career and your expenses are typically going to be the lowest they are. So that's where you can take advantage of that and take action. But progressively, as your income increases over time, you don't want your expenses just to naturally increase with your income. If you can be super diligent, super disciplined, and keep your expenses the same, and it is hard now with inflation and things are increasing, but if you can control that as much as possible, over time, as your income increases, the percentage of your savings on your income will increase as well. So that's super powerful, and that's something that I have done over the last, let's call it decade, right? My income naturally increased over time, and this was before we were in a period where inflation has gone up and things have increased dramatically. But for a number of years, my expenses legitimately stayed exactly the same. And it just meant that I was saving more money every single week. And that was super powerful because I used that to save money and inject straight back into property. And that has served me really well in those high performing assets. So don't let your expenses increase with your income. Naturally, it might a little bit with inflation and everything right now in the marketplace, but keep that as low as possible. Make those consistent savings and then use those savings to go out there and leverage into higher performing assets. So it's simply just a discipline thing. Work out your fixed expenses and then work out what your discretionary expenses are. Work out what that savings is that you can save consistently every single week and transfer that straight across to a savings account. My tip always is to transfer that to an account where you can only view it, you can't touch it. So if you're out on the weekend, you have a couple of beers, you're not going to you tap into it or anything like that. If something serious comes up, by all means, then you can call up and change that access or pop into a branch, etc. But it limits that temptation where potentially you're more inclined to reach in and take that. So it's just a little bit more accountability. But one of the most important things you can do is that consistent cash surplus every single week. And it just links back into your liabilities, keeping up with the Joneses and just buying shit you don't need. You don't need the fancy car. You don't need the fancy watch. Over time, once you buy those assets that are working for you and creating passive income, that's where you can do that, make those purchases if that's what's important to you. For me personally, that doesn't mean too much to me. I'd rather just create freedom, create choices where I have more time to go out, be out in nature, be by the beach. And I guess, and I was thinking about this the other day, is just the choice for me to be able to just buy the food that I want to, the quality food, and not worry about the price on things. That's something super important to me personally because I love food. And this is just a bit of a tangent off that. But when I was younger, we didn't have the opportunity to eat steak every night or anything like that. Okay. Whereas now, have that decision to be able to buy that really quality stuff and enjoy good food that's going to nourish your body. So that's, something that is important to me. I guess when we work with a lot of clients, and this is something that I've noticed over time, and this was definitely prevalent in me to begin with, my income wasn't super high, but I was a consistent saver every single week. And you'll find people out there on the super high incomes, they're not saving that much or have that cash surplus because they generate good income, but then they have this lifestyle that just blows it. So it's not what you make, but it's what you save at the end of the week, the end of the month. That's really what's important. So that's just something I find is, people on modest incomes have really good, consistent habits of saving consistently every single week. So if you're on a high income and you can go out there and be diligent, create that cash surplus, you should be able to save more than a lot of people because of that income. And then that's powerful because you inject it into those higher performing assets. All right. Pretty short, sweet one today, guys. But I just wanted to really touch base on delaying your gratification because it's super, super important. And I guess this day and age with social media, seeing everyone's highlight reel, people are posting just all sorts of stuff, and it gets you in a mindset where you start to compare with others, and comparison is the thief of joy. So just try not to get caught up in what other people are doing, and that's really working on your mindset, understanding that, sticking to your lane, what's important for you and what's important to your family in the future. And it doesn't mean buying the expensive bag or the crazy car now, or the expensive, super unaffordable caravan that you've got with a personal loan or whatever it is, right? Go out there, be consistent, delay your gratification, have that financial discipline, because in the long run, for not only yourself, but your family, if you have a family now, or if you don't have a family and you plan to, your future family, it's going to mean a massive difference to them in 10 to 15 years' time. It's going to give you far more options, far more freedom to go out there and do the things that are important to you. And I guess use that free time to go out there and create memories and experiences over that materialistic stuff. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this quick one today on delaying your gratification, getting out of the rat race so you're not tied to your job for the next 40 years. All right. Have a good one. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you don't already, make sure you follow us across all of our social platforms. That can be Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. I wish you all the best out there on your property investing journey, and I hope each decision you make in purchasing more property gets you closer to your goal of financial freedom.